The Libyan leader has vowed to fight till the death and die a martyr in his homeland, refusing to step down amid widespread anti-government protests. In his first major speech since the unrest began, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi talked of the cowards and traitors responsible for the uprising. Referring to protesters as rats, Gaddafi urged his supporters to take to the streets and attack the opposition, who he claimed were bribed, drugged, and serving the devil. The Libyan Interior Minister has defected and joined the protesters, calling on the army to follow and support the people's demands for change. Several Libyan ambassadors have also quit in protest over the use of force on civilians, demanding the end of Gaddafi's decades-long rule. The country's leader reportedly ordered the army to use airstrikes against the demonstrators, something he denies. Several hundred have been killed and over 4,000 injured in the first week of violence, making it the bloodiest of all the Arab revolts.
الكتب الدينية التي يخرجون بها التي كانت تصادر.
Now, the popular revolution in Egypt saw a president in office for 3 decades swept from power in just a matter of weeks. But many observers say the transition from dictatorship to democracy is just out of reach. RT's Peter Oliver has more from Cairo.
They fought, they bled, many died. The protesters who took over central Cairo had a clear goal: the removal of a dictator and establishing a free country. Amo Etrebi is an activist and one of the organisers of the revolution that toppled Hosni Mubarak. He believes that Egypt can make the transition from dictatorship to a democratic state.
The thing is, we're defining democracy in our own terms over here. I mean, everyone look at it on its own terms, but we are going to do it our terms. There's stuff that we want to see in this country, our country. There's stuff that we want to feel like it. There's some way of getting it, and we're going to get that.
Support for a democratic Egypt has come from governments around the world. However, some of those leaders who have been quick to congratulate the revolutionaries may not be so pleased with the possible future for the country.
One basic problem we see, and this is a big dilemma for the West, we want democracy, but we also want states that will be friendly to us and do what we want. But almost certainly, Arab democracy is going to be a great deal less comfortable for the West than Arab dictators, Arab autocrats, Arab monarchs have been.
But those dictators have been swept aside by people who, after years of injustice, finally had enough.
The truth is, many Egyptians live in dire economic conditions. In an interview with a major newspaper, the Minister for Social Solidarity, Ghouda Abdel Khalik, said that unless the people receive the required help that they need, the next revolution in the country could be a revolution of the hungry.
The past years have seen the major cities in the north become wealthy, while the south of the country has suffered with social problems such as unemployment and education. Some of the poorest people in the Egyptian capital live in the Bulaq area of Cairo. Here, many are hopeful that a democratic Egypt will help them out of poverty. However, others express concern that they may see the rich get richer while the poor get poorer.
I am worried things could get worse for the poor if democracy is not implemented. I pray God will keep Egypt safe.
While the West may have been convinced Egyptians were fighting for democratic principles, they may be in for a nasty shock when they find out that the people simply wanted change. Peter Oliver, RT, Cairo, Egypt.
مسعود الجيش انضم اي نعم اي نعم قاعدين في العيساوي تنافسوا بيخشوا على الكتيبه فاضيه هي ما فيها حد روحوا كلهم كتيبه كريون ورجل والله دي بها رساله ايش هذا يقول يا حكيم القضيه مطيقه
Anti-government protesters have taken over large sections of the country in the largest uprising ever against Colonel Gaddafi's rule. The eastern part of Libya is now under opposition rule, with residents in Benghazi, the country's second largest city, restoring basic services and setting up informal government systems. In western Libya, early reports said anti-government protesters there have taken control of Misrata, Libya's third largest city, about 130 miles from the capital of Tripoli. But as we go to broadcast, Al Jazeera reports a caller from Misrata says up to 1,000 members of Gaddafi's forces, the Hamza Brigade, mounted an attack on protesters near the city's airport and were repelled, and later launched an attack on the center of the city.
On Wednesday, Gaddafi called on thousands of mercenaries and irregular security forces to defend the capital city of Tripoli. People there have said they are too scared to go outdoors because of fears pro-government militias will shoot them on sight. It remains unclear how many people have been killed in Gaddafi's brutal crackdown, but Italy's foreign minister says as many as 1,000 people may have been killed since the country, since the protests began. Last night, we reached Democracy Now! Correspondent Anjali Kamat, who drove across the Libyan border from Egypt. We reached her in the Libyan city of Tobruk.
One of the things that was remarkable about getting in today was how welcoming people were to journalists. This is a country that hasn't allowed in the foreign press for decades. And now all of a sudden, through this border, foreign journalists are being welcomed with open arms. And that's because this eastern border with Egypt has fallen to anti-Gaddafi forces. Large parts of eastern Libya, from Benghazi east to the Egyptian border, seem to be completely in the hands of people who call themselves the revolutionaries, the anti-Gaddafi forces, who've taken this part of the country after fierce battles with Gaddafi's police and mercenaries who've used incredible violence against a lot of the people here. Even just being here for a few hours, we've heard remarkable stories from people going out into the streets and fighting street battles with police. Starting in groups of 20 and 30 and then being joined by hundreds more to fight back and fight the police until the police surrendered. So now you have town after town in eastern Libya fully under the control of the people. In fact, when we reached Libya, when we crossed into the border, we were welcomed by the people who were in the uniforms of the Libyan army, and who had now defected to the revolutionaries. And everywhere there was graffiti saying, "Welcome to the new Libya, welcome to the free Libya." People are ecstatic. There's I think, a sense of incredulity among people here that after 42 years of living under Muammar Gaddafi, they've finally tasted freedom for the first time. People are also very nervous because they're not sure what might come next. There is certainly this sense of newfound fearlessness, of willing to put their lives on the line. Now that they've tasted freedom, they're not going to go back, and they're going to fight. People are willing to fight to the death to keep what they've gotten. And there don't seem to be any police anywhere all along the route. There's checkpoints set up by different groups, some of whom are in the uniform of the Libyan army, some of whom are just young men with guns. They have been incredibly polite and welcoming to us. I came in with 2 Italian journalists and an Egyptian journalist, and met many other American and international journalists along the way, all of whom had a similar experience coming in. Everyone wanted to pose for photographs and was very eager to get the message out that we're now in a free part of Libya and that they're hoping the revolution will spread westwards. People are worried, however, about diminishing food and medical supplies. There's also some worries about that the water might be cut off. Right now there is electricity and water and food in the town I'm in, but all the banks have been closed and cash flow is severely restricted, so people are worried and not sure how much longer this can go on. But the overwhelming sense is that Gaddafi's days are numbered. Yesterday's speech, I think, was quite remarkable, given that he was so absurd at a moment when the state has unleashed so much violence upon its own people. And people are scared and not sure of what's going to come next. People aren't sure whether he's going to bomb his people from the air or the sea. The only hope is that more and more people defect and join the anti-Gaddafi forces. And I think that's what people are really hoping for, and hoping that the example of Benghazi and what they're calling the Liberated East will stand as an example, and that people under Gaddafi's control won't continue to take his orders.
That was Angelique Kamet, Democracy Now! Correspondent, speaking to us late last night from Tobruk in eastern Libya.